Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing great.
It's
I know,
nice your virtual logo on the computer and imagine what you look like.
yeah, it's been a while since we've done a podcast, and of course, everything, literally everything has changed since the last one we did. The world is in lockdown. And it has affected every business in one way or another, every person in one way or another. Nobody has seen anything like this in their lifetime. So, we're going to be talking a lot about how we're dealing with these things, but also how people and businesses can prepare. Because despite the constant use of the phrase the new normal, this is not going to last forever. This is an emergency situation, and we are going to get past it, and things are going to return to a semblance of normality. And we do need to be ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But the new normal is going to be a different normal. And I think in a lot of ways, it's going to be a whole lot better. Um, the bottom line is always complain about negative news and this and that, whatever. And the only negative news out there right now is COVID-19. And otherwise, you see a whole lot of wonderful things going on and people collaborating. And I just think this is just going to be a wonderful adjustment phase for everybody. And as you say, yes, we're going to come out of this better than ever, as far as I'm concerned. But it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of new ideas, and so on and so forth. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing our guest speaker today.
Yes. And, I really hate the phrase the new normal because honestly, normal is adapting to change. Because in 1977, the new normal, they said, oh, oil was never and gas was never going to be affordable again. It was going to be ridiculous. In 1999, all the retailers were going to go out of business. You were only going to buy things online. 2009, we were going to deal with high unemployment forever. And if you were over 50, you had a good chance of never being at work again. And now they're going, oh, well, it's the new normal again. You know what? That not that much has changed because normal is adapting to circumstances. And that's what we're going to do again. So on that note, I want to introduce our guest, Zef Zan. Zef, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Hey, everybody. Well, first of all, thank you all for having me. Thanks, Chip. Thanks, Eric. I love that, once in a while I show up on a show that I don't have to put on a face, right? I don't show up on video. So I literally can be anywhere. And Eric's laughing already. As a matter of fact, I am in the car, so I hope that my background is not too bad. But other than that, hey everyone, thank you for having me. I'm Zef Zan, and primarily, Eric, I work with folks to kind of master live video conversations and get to yes connections, and primarily focusing on live videos themselves. And in the world that we live in today, that becomes really handy.
It certainly does.
Yes, yes, when I have conversations with folks on, you know, um, the people who wants to bring their an element of their business online or virtually. So I've been blessed and grateful that many people are reaching out. So I can't say that I have a lot of time on my hand. Not really. I've been blessed to have momentum in what I do. So maybe I can share a little bit of that story in the call today.
And also, what we're going to be talking about most is you actually train people in how to use the gig economy.
Yes. So what would you like me to start with the gig economy?
Well,
One of the things. Go ahead.
why don't we start with sort of a status? Because let's face it, over the last few weeks, the gig economy has changed dramatically.
Mm-hmm. I think the most important part right now, where everybody's going through some sort of a crisis, the gig economy somehow shows up on our radar, right? And some of us are going through a challenge with the gig economy because let's take, for instance, where I am right now. Being an Airbnb host, this was a gig economy for me, right? And the challenge right now is people are not traveling. So there is what should I say, there is a pause in this gig economy that I've been, I would say, blessed to have learned about. But I think it also creates opportunities for folks who are, figuring things out. Hey, we're all in reset. What can I do? What kind of gig economy can probably, help me still have momentum and have an income? And I think it's important that we'll all take a pause moment and figure out, how to maybe leverage a gig economy that maybe involves our creativity or our skill set. So that's what I'm thinking many people are thinking about a gig economy right now.
And there has been a lot of changes. I mean, certainly
Hmm.
Airbnb took a massive hit because people aren't
Yep,
going anywhere. But gig economy jobs such as Grubhub, DoorDash,
yep,
Instacart, where you're
exactly.
picking up food and
Uber.
delivering, those are huge
Hmm.
now.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, depending on which gig economy, that each of us are choosing to kind of leverage, it all depends on the need and the demand of that gig. So you're absolutely right. With Airbnb, it's almost a help because nobody wants to really. Well, first of all, there's a travel challenge. Second of all, many hosts are not, opening up their homes. So that's a challenge. But you're absolutely right. Grubhub, DoorDash, people want their food delivered. And the other day, I had bought pizza at my local pizza restaurant, and they were like swarmed. So I kind of like thought, ooh, this would be great for those, folks who are in the gig economy of delivering food, like Uber Eats, Grubhub, and all that stuff.
Now, for those listeners who aren't familiar with it, why don't you give us a little bit of a little overview on what constitutes the gig economy? What separates that from a standard job or a standard entrepreneur?
So I think, first of all, for me, I'm just going to share from my point of view because of my experience with
Right.
Airbnb. So I think it's going to be different for everybody, but the basis of a gig economy, it involves, things that you already have or skill sets or, just being creative. So one of the things that that kind of led me into the gig economy with Airbnb was the fact that, hey, I need to make more money, but without putting out a huge investment. And that was this disruptive business model that I was able to leverage and make an income. And if that income starts off as a part-time income, then awesome. And eventually, I can actually grow into the business. It doesn't take a lot to set up a gig economy business. And all you literally have to do is look at your resources versus the traditional entrepreneurship where you have to get proper licensing, you have to spend the money for capital operations, human resources. So it's really kept simple. It's really kept to like what are your resources that you have access to right now. And Airbnb is just about having an extra space or an extra room. Uber, Lyft, it's just like, hey, I have a car that I can drive people around. So instead of it sitting down in my driveway, I'll drive somebody to work for X amount of money. So both are disruptive business models, and it doesn't take much to set it up. It's app based. All you have to do is just, plug into their system, and you have, business in a way, a gig economy business. So that's as easy as it gets with the gig economy, type of business versus traditional entrepreneurship. Does that make sense?
It does. And of course, people have used, the words gig economy a lot recently. But the fact of the matter is this is not really a new thing. It's just a lot of people
Right.
are discovering it for the first time. 30 years ago, I had a side hustle as a freelance writer, which was exactly the same thing as what we're calling the gig economy now. Back then, it was
Mhm.
just called freelance.
Yep.
But people have done this for decades. It's not something that's new, but because it's suddenly picking up steam and becoming easier to do with the advent of certain technologies to connect people, now it's at the forefront of people's thoughts. So,
Not only that, I'm sorry, but not only that, I think about this, right? You're absolutely right. It is not new. It's been around for a long time. It's just about terminology, I think. And, many solopreneurs started that way, right? It's, whether it's cookie baking, whether it's, like you said, services driving somebody, like driving somebody to a doctor's appointment. It all started somewhere with your available resources and skill sets. It's not a new idea. It's just like it's just gotten savvier, with all the technology that is available right there. But other than that, it really has been around for a long time.
Yeah,
right.
you brought up basically you were talking about what the definition is, and I looked up the definition, and if I didn't put gig economy in front of this, and I just started saying popular term for freelance or contract workers who take freelance jobs on demand and are often working multiple freelance jobs at once. This has been going on forever, just like you said, and obviously it takes some planning, and we talk a lot about personal strategic planning and so on and so forth. So I would imagine that by analyzing your skill sets and things that are out there, you could really put together a good plan to leverage this moving ahead. So I would imagine, Zef, you'll talk a little bit about that as far as, we have certain opportunities that were great that aren't right now, like Airbnbs, but moving ahead, I'm sure there's going to be a whole lot more other types of freelance jobs and things that people can do just by being creative.
Absolutely. And I think this is the time during this crisis, I think this is the time that we will find, some of the best ideas for, starting a business, and some of the best opportunities come around this time when, because when we're in crisis mode, sometimes I know for me at least, what happens is my mind take over and then I get creative. When I get creative, I get to, I in fact, history has shown that I produce the best products and programs during crisis, So I think it's just a matter of us human beings being, more like, what can I do now? Now that this is my, these are my resources. What can I do with what resources I have on hand? And if that also includes my skill sets, it could be baking, it could be something that, is your expertise. It will be turned into a business. And I think it will eventually become a gig economy, and that's how I think it all starts. A great idea starts.
Yeah, we know historically more new businesses are formed during a recession and during times of economic crisis than any other time. Now you're talking about, figuring out what your resources are. Now is a great time to do that because as you are stuck at home, you're literally looking at, okay, what can I do here? What can I do from the house? What skills do I have? The crisis, because of being limited in what you can do, can really focus you to find new opportunities.
Correct. And I think, that not only that, Eric, and I also think another important aspect of this conversation is the fact that now we're in that time where we're thinking like, what are what do people need, and a lot of great products and ideas come from what does the business need right now? What do I need right now, right? And we tap into our resources, our talents, our skill sets, and then leverage them to kind of create new ideas. And that's the beauty of this.